if you found Bitcoin and accepted Bitcoin for yourself and have implemented it in your life, you've solved the fiat problem. That's the idea, right? So once you have solved the fiat problem, you get more time, and you feel like you have something to live for. You feel like you have something to plan for, right? And then the step to think about your health makes a lot of sense. Now, do people take this to the extreme? Do people think now that they have understood Austrian economics and have read some Mises and maybe understood how inflation works and the Cantillon effect works and why debt-based money, maybe not bad, but has a lot of problems? Then they read, I don't know, a blog or watch a couple of videos, and they decide after 2 weeks they're also experts for nutrition. That happens. It's a phase.
Is that actually a luxury problem that Bitcoiners might have in the future when they are disciplined, they don't spend too much, they always have a savings rate, they always put it in Bitcoin, they pay attention to the Bitcoin, they do self-custody, they're not losing it, they're not spending it on Lamborghinis, they're not spending it on crazy houses or something like that. And in 10 years, in 20 years, they're making the calculation on what they spend per month and how many Satoshis they have. And they're like, oh, I can live for another 100 years from my stack, another 50 years, another 20 years from my stack. And then like, what do I do?
I think it's very philosophical. It's very philosophical. I'm 43. I don't even have so much Bitcoin because I first of all, I bought and I sold and I bought shitcoins and I speculated and I lost money and I lost this and lost that. And then once I finally realized about Bitcoin, yes, I was very quick to start my podcast and that. But then I also invested a lot of money into the podcast, obviously. So my main Bitcoin investment is my business, not actually Bitcoin. But I think it's when you it may, like, if you look into the future, if you think you can plan, it doesn't even have to be Bitcoin. If you look at our parents or their parents here in Europe, after the war, after the wars was over and the building began, life got better, visibly better. So people were more optimistic about the future, and they were building for the future. Now we come from a generation, you and especially come from a generation where I grew up in the 90s, and I think the 90s were objectively the last good decade. Is that because that was when I was a teenager, or is it because for real, right? I don't know. When you look on even like Instagram shorts or YouTube shorts or whatever, that like old footage from the pre-cell phone era from like high schools, it's a whole sentimental thing, which is ironic because you're watching it on your cell phone. But what I'm saying is, I graduated high school in the summer of 2001. And then we had 2 months, 2 amazing months, right? And then 9/11 happened. Are you born after 9/11?
When was it exactly?
2001.
No, I was born before, yeah, 1998.
98, okay. So you were 3,
yeah,
right? So you didn't really,
It was not shocking me.
It wasn't shocking. Okay, so then most of my adult life was crisis mode, and all of your life was crisis mode, right? So they're like finding a way to get out of this crisis mode mentally is amazing. It could be philosophy. Bitcoin really helps because it solves the monetary problem. Okay, and then the next thing, of course, is health is the basis for everything else. If I'm not healthy, I cannot run my business. If I'm not healthy, I cannot take care of my family. But I also can't go on a holiday or do nice stuff. And some people realize that earlier, some people realize that later. And I think it's at some point you realize that it's more about feeling good today, and like, yes, being healthy, but not being like a nut job about it. Because even if you live like this Brian Johnson guy who thinks he's going to be 200, you can still get run over by a car, or be in a plane crash, or even get some weird disease that you did not account for, right? And if you spend your whole life, I mean, even the Stoics from 2,000 years ago knew that if you spend your whole life thinking about, prolonging your life, you didn't even live at all. So it's really not a new thing.
When you said that about the generations, one thing came to my mind. Have you ever been in the Vienna subway after like 10:30, 11 p.m. at like a Saturday or Friday?
The funny thing is that when I was like 20 years, when I went out, like there was no subway at night in Vienna. They only started doing that a couple of years ago. Do you know that?
I know, I don't.
No, and like the New York subway goes 24/7, right?
Yeah.
The Vienna subway always stopped at night. So at night you only hit the buses. Now I think Fridays and Saturdays the subway goes through the night. But that, like when I was young-ish, when I was doing that, no,
I brought that up because
and now I go to bed at 9. So
me mostly also, but I was once sober on a Saturday evening in Vienna subway at, I don't know, 11 or something like that. And it was so interesting to see because it's a very different picture to what you see at, I don't know, Friday 9 a.m. in the morning. Friday 9 a.m. in the morning, everyone is literally sitting there with the phone like that, like 99% of the people.
yeah,
Subway, 11 p.m. in Vienna on a Saturday night. Everyone is talking to each other. It's like it's almost like fun vibe. It's almost like at a bar. Almost nobody has a phone out. There's always like 1, 2 that with the phone in the thing, but because they're just late for home from work or like they had something else to do. But it's a whole different vibe. People talk to each other. Obviously they're drunken, so they're a little bit more fun. And not saying that get drunk on Saturday evening and have a good time in a subway, but it's kind of a window in what if there's no smartphones? Like people all of a sudden talk to each other because they sit next to each other. Now people don't talk to each other because they are on their phone and talk with random strangers on the internet.
Yeah, fight with them on X.
Yeah.
And get in the latest news on the Bitcoin price. I guess. I mean, it's not like I don't do it. Yeah, I mean, I personally, what I do right now is this. I don't drink anymore. So I stopped drinking about half a year ago. It was a very spontaneous decision, but so far I really don't miss it. I figured out that when it's way easier to do the other stuff that's good for you if you don't drink, because then you keep your gym hours, you do sports, right? I realized that I do podcasts, right? I do like 2 to 4 episodes each week. It's actually too many because I don't publish as many as you do. I always get stressed because there's too many like in the back catalog, right? But I realized when I started playing golf that if I do a podcast after, like the day after I played around a golf, the podcast is gonna be way better because my energy is better and I'm on a different frequency, right? So and then at some point I realized, yes, golf is great and you get sun even without the balls, right? I mean, I only sun my golf balls, not the others. You get sun and you're in nature, and yes, I really try to spend 4 hours without taking the phone out, which is amazing. It's like meditation. You move, you play a game, you're within your thoughts. It's amazing. I can only say, golf is the next big thing. But I realized that if I just want the positive, effects of moving my body, I can also go to the fitness studio, right? And then I do this for half a year, and then I get a message from Daniel, Stronger with Daniel or strongerbydaniel.com. Check out his website. He's a strength coach in Vienna. He's doing Olympic weightlifting stuff, like crazy shit, but he wanted me to check out his stuff and tell people that he would be available online, offline, and he also accepts Bitcoin as a cool website. And I'm like, it's perfect, man. I've been doing this for half a year. Now we can trade together. I can learn from you. We do value for value. You come to the podcast, and he'll be on soon. So I stopped drinking, and it's easier for me to do sports. And I think that's like the most important stuff, right? Like the most important steps. I don't know if I will ever drink again, but it really, like, I don't miss anything. I really don't. With the drinking, really. Now I'm an expert in alcohol-free beer, which is interesting. I like beer. I always like beer. the quote unquote problem with beer without alcohol is that the first one is pretty good, the second one is already pretty shit, and then you never have a third one. So you never drink like 12 beers, right? Because with normal beer you can drink 12 beers. So that's bad for like the industry. It's good for me.
With microseed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because microseed is not selling the washer. Microseed is selling the device that stamps the washer. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today. And you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io. Finally, we have BTC Prague back in 2026. And this year, I'm not only speaking on a panel, but I'm actually going to present an interesting new angle, a perspective, a Bitcoin thesis at BTC Prague this year for the first time ever. I've never done that on any other conference, so this will be a fun one. If you listen to this show on a regular basis, I would love to meet you in Prague this year. It's very high signal, no noise, and Prague is just a freaking amazing city with awesome drinks and a lot of good food. Use code ROBIN to get 10% off, and if you buy with Bitcoin, you get an additional 5% off your ticket price. I'll see you there in Prague. Make sure to come say hi.
There is a lot about health is actually cutting out the bad things.
Yeah.
And then this also, because we talked previously about the diets, carnivore and the vegans, and they're both very hard on like why their thing works. And I think the underlying truth of both of them is they all of a sudden cut out sugar and processed food.
Very true. Very true.
They all of a sudden cut out like those sugary drinks and all those things. And then of course they get healthier, but it's not because they only eat steak once per day. It's because they no longer eat the Kit Kats and the Sprites and all of those sugary drinks. So a lot of the health stuff is first cut out all the bad things that you're doing. No sleep, no movement, bad food, and then you can build on a nice solid base.
I mean, again, I'm not an expert. I'm not a nutritionist. I know a lot about Bitcoin. I don't know a lot about food, so don't take my word for it. But it seems very obvious that it's sugar. It's pretty fucking obvious that the sugar is like the real problem. It's probably not fat. It's definitely not protein. Of course, there are many ways to like. We also need some sort of carbohydrates. Don't get me wrong, but it's very obvious that the sugar and of course alcohol. Alcohol is basically just sugar, it's that. I mean, that for me is very very obvious. That's just. And I try to stay away. For me, sugar has always been the main problem. I try to stay away, but also I don't want to be dogmatic about it because it never works. It's like if you say I'm never gonna do this, I'm never gonna do that, and then you do it, and then your will is broken, and then you say okay, then let me indulge a little more. I think that I don't want to like sound like I've figured anything out, but I think like not drinking really helps, like with willpower, with sleep. Very like one of the reasons I stopped drinking. I don't have it today because I forgot it, but I have this like fitness thing, right? This like
the Whoop, yeah.
It's not a Whoop. It's like the cheaper version of a Whoop because I'm a Bitcoiner. I cannot do the Whoop, but it has like it's a Mace Fit. It's
Mace Fit. After Aura Ring.
Yeah, it's like that, right?
Yeah.
So I have this, and then when you look at like your sleep with no alcohol and you sleep with like one beer, and basically your sleep with one beer is just shit. There's no real sleep there. It's just basically you're just in a coma, and especially if you drink more. So long story short, the alcohol really doesn't really help. And I've been I didn't drink like I wasn't an alcoholic or anything, but I drank enough, a lot. I don't know what a lot is. I think people in Austria drink like the second highest amount of beer after like the Czechs.
Yeah, Czech, Germans, and Austrian is a nice region for beer.
I love beer, especially the Czech beer. but now I drink alcohol-free beer and has less calories, and I drink less. So, and you can drink it for lunch, like our dads did in the good old days, but they had the real stuff.
I was lucky. I never got into beer. I never liked it. I don't know.
I grew up in a wine region, so
Oh.
I hate fucking wine. I hate it.
And that's why I might
It's also
hate.
sugary.
That's why I might hate beer, because I grew up in Upper Austria where they drink a lot of beer.
Yeah, well, I don't like wine, and all the pretentious wine thing, and no, thank God, no.
Not in the wine, like it's in Austria it's a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big thing everywhere. It's but no, not for me.
We kind of got a little bit sidetracked
happens.
from the AI Bitcoin thing. But maybe one more thing that I want to get into, because you said previously that you don't think gold is the first one to get demonetized, and I really strongly agree, because there's a lot worse assets that people save the money in than gold. Real estate, bonds, especially bonds, it's crazy. And now also with those strategy things, we have interesting vehicles to get that easy into Bitcoin. How do you look at the different asset classes being demonetized by Bitcoin? Do we have a sequence, a priority, or a framework to think about Bitcoin sucking up that energy from all the other asset classes?
I hope what I say now you can put that in like the highlight reel at the beginning of the episode, so people stay on through the whole health and AI debate, because actually that's the most important stuff. So one thing I think a lot about is the greater fool theory, right? And you know what the greater fool theory? The greater fool theory is something that people always bring up as an argument against Bitcoin. Why? Because in the classic investment world, there's always a story you tell yourself about intrinsic value, about the real stuff that companies are doing or countries are doing or whatever, that the assets that you buy. And like every good story, it's partly true. It is true. When you look at the long-term trends on equity markets, you will always, revert to the mean of actual, profits of companies and what they actually do, and that's a good thing. So I'm a big fan of like the Jack Bogle index investing school, 100%. I think that we're going to see in the next 20 years, we're going to like unleash the AI investment bots. And then after 20 years, we realize that none of them beat the market, that even AI cannot beat the market, because you cannot fucking beat the market, Yes, when you are lucky, or when you find a really, really breakthrough thing like Bitcoin early and you do it right, yes, you can beat the market for a while. But long term, as a strategy that you can tell your kids about, no, you cannot break the market. You cannot beat the market. But the greater fool theory is that there are assets with a financial intrinsic value, like stocks or bonds or even commodities, because you can use them for stuff. And then there are basically collectibles that have no sort of intrinsic value. Now, first of all, intrinsic value is a bullshit concept, and everybody who knows anything about economics knows there is no intrinsic value. There's only like value is like beauty. It's in the eye of the beholder, right? But as a concept on Wall Street, there is such a thing, like you have that and that income, that the stock is there. You can have a earnings per share, whatever. Now you have in Bitcoin land, you have Bitcoin per share. It's so there's something there, right? Something that we call intrinsic value on the financial side. Okay, and then you have other stuff like Bitcoin, like these people would say Beanie Babies or Labubus, or even gold that has no intrinsic value. Now, when it comes to gold, it's interesting. So people who don't like Bitcoin will say it trades on the greater fool theory. The greater fool theory means you have to find a greater fool to give you more money than you paid for it. That's the idea. Like that there's no real value underlying. You have to find a greater fool, right? The problem is that these people don't understand how money works. They don't understand that there is such a thing as a store of value. They think that money has always to be in some sort of investment and has to work, right? Because they don't understand that there is such a thing as saving, like saving your money for later. We do this actually. We talked about this before. We do this actually by storing our value in stocks, by storing our value in bonds, by storing our value in real estate, right? And what does this stuff trade on in the end for us? on the same thing. We also want number to go up, right? If I put my money in the S&P 500, it's because I want the number to go up. If I put my money into real estate, it's because I expect my number to go up. Nobody puts money anywhere where they say, well, we're going to lose the money. Yeah, some people do, like with inflation, but that's at least it's not like a real deficit, right? Okay.
Thank you for watching this video. This was only a snippet of the podcast. And if you want to watch the full episode and get all of the context of this episode, you can click right here or here. Oh, maybe also here.